Hello there, Parth Sharma this side, bringing you best chess games going all around the world. Do take time to like, comment, share, and subscribe to my channel. If you're already subscribed, then do press the bell icon for future notifications. And if you like my work, then do consider supporting me on Patreon and PayPal. You will find the links in the description because your support is my motivation, which keeps me going. And if you want to watch a specific game, then I put timestamps in the description box so that you can jump over to the game that you want to see. So today was the day of the quarterfinals of the Chessable Masters is taking place at Chess 24. In first quarterfinal, we saw Magnus Carlsen playing against Fabiano Caruana, and it was a clash to see, or I should say clash of the titans, because both players are number 1 and number 2 respectively, with Magnus the numero uno and Fabiano Caruana trailing behind. So it was very important to see who has the edge. So without further ado, let's jump onto the game. Carlsen is white in the first game. He opens with d4. Fabi responds with anti-Nimzo Indian. The Queen's Gambit declined, and knight c3. You can play bishop d4, which will transpose into the Ragozin variation of the Nimzo Indian. But he plays call system. Fabi. He avoids bishop here or bishop e7, which Hikaru Nakamura plays against Magnus, or in fact against everybody. This Harvard's attack of the Queen's Gambit decline, but he goes for this call system. This a6 to stop any knight b5 sort of things, but still a very old sort of opening system. As I said, the call system. cd, ed, and now bishop g5 pinning, so probably preparing e4. Bishop comes to e6, e3, knight b to d7, and by playing bishop to g5 we make sure that this bishop isn't caged inside on c1 square. So that's another thing to be taken care of. h3, so somewhat I would say call a waiting move, and also stopping bishop to g4. Bishop d6, bishop to d3, c6. So far so good. Bishop comes to f4, offering the trade of bishops, and he basically wants to preempt bishop takes, so that he gets 2 f pawns to attack towards the king, initiating f5 if bishop takes and pawn takes. But Fabi decides against it and plays queen to c7, so exchanging bishops this way. Bishop takes, queen takes, so that no hampering of the pawn structures and no I would say nasty attacks on the king towards the king with 2 f pawns. Both sides castle, and now queen b3, attacking this loose point on b7. And at first glance I thought b5 would have been a better move, but still b5 would be better move, but that would leave the c6 and a6 pawns a little bit weak, with rook c1 sort of things might appear, attacking the pawn here, maybe moving this knight away and restationing it here, and then attacking, doubling on the c file to attack this pawn, this weak pawn on c6. Might have been nasty for black, as I said. But rook a b8, defending the pawn, is somewhat a pretty passive position for that rook to be in. So anyway, a4 stopping b5, rook f to e8, so stationing the rook into the semi-open file. Queen to a3, Magnus offers the trade of queens. He likes queenless endgames, or I should say queenless games, the endgames, and he's very much proficient. It's for everyone to see. It's not a secret anymore. But Caruana declines the endgame. Rook f to c1, knight b6, so possibly trying to play knight c4, although not at the moment, because that would double the pawns after bishop takes, pawn takes, and that can be nasty. b4 from Magnus, and now rook to a8. So this was I think knight c4 would have been a better move rather than rook to a8, because that pawn would have been defended, but the pawn was on b2, and that's why I said knight c4 wouldn't have been a better option. But now b4 was played and there's no b3 move possible. I think this was well worth considering because the bishop is defending, and if let's say knight g5, then you can add another defender because that rook won't be here, it would be on b8. So anyway, rook a8, another passive move, maybe loses a tempo in this position, I would say. a5 for Magnus, and now this knight has to go to c8, and a very miserable square for the knight. Basically he's trying to play this to this, but is he on time? That's the question. The answer is no, because Magnus plays b5 himself, a takes, knight takes, exploiting this pin. The pawn cannot take it because the queen would be hanging, and you can see knight d6 is not possible because two pieces are controlling this square on d6 at the moment. So he has to play queen d8. So now the queen is not on c7, so knight is actually attacked. So knight goes back to c3. Now knight d6 by Fabiano. Maybe still he can try to play this knight either here or here. So plays queen b4. Magnus attacks the pawn on b7 so that this knight is hinged here, only defending this b7 pawn, and also making sure that the rook can defend this pawn directly. Queen to e7, so creating an x-ray towards this queen. a6 by Magnus. Pawn takes, rook takes, and bishop takes. Rook to a8 attacking the bishop. Bishop f1, bishop drops back to its home square because rook a1 would have been an annoying move, so that there are no back checks, although there is I would say an escape square, but still the active rook is the last thing that you would want in the position. And here I thought that knight f5 should have been a better move because the queen still be defended by the knight on f5. However, playing this knight backwards somewhat create more weaknesses in this position, and I again don't like this move knight c8 by Fabiano. He's basically trying that, okay, Magnus likes queenless endgame, so he would like to liquidate this into an endgame by exchanging queens on e7 like that. But Magnus keeps his queens and plays queen to b2. And again, if he wants to exchange queens, then he can play queen to a3, and we would see whether he would play either queen b7 in that position. If queen b7, then queen a6. No, queen a6 is not possible. The bishop on f1 is looking at that. Maybe rook a7 would have been an option after that. Who knows? Anyway, so here Fabiano plays knight to d7, and again another backward knight's move that I don't like in this position, and it looks horrible, this position for black, because you see two knights, two backward knights I would say, and somewhat creates more passive positions for black, and whereas it creates more opportunities to attack on the weaknesses. Look at the c6 pawn, it's way too weak, the back rank is way too weak, so that once that rook leaves the back rank, then the black would be in heaps of trouble. Knight to e2, directly attacking the pawn on c6. Rook to b8, attacking the queen, so queen tucks to c3. Rook b6, so defending the pawn because the queen is directly attacking instead of the rook. Queen to a5, attacking the rook at the moment, but still making sure that one of the knights would be keep defending this rook, and also possibly trying to bring this knight here as well. So anyway, queen d6, knight to f4, which is played, knight to e7, so again the knight goes off. If queen a8, then rook comes, the rook is defended by the knight and by the queen. So knight takes e6, f takes e6, and now knight to e5. This knight cannot take because the queen is attacking the rook. So again, keeping a lot of pressure, rook goes to b8, queen to a7, but now knight can take because the queen is defending. But now there's a problem. After d takes e5, this queen has to go back to d8, and that's a big thing. I would say that's a big issue that it is creating at the moment. The queen is somewhat overloaded at the moment, so if another piece joins in to attack this knight, then where would this rook go? That's the question. And this actually gives white another opportunity to attack on more weaknesses, c6 and e6 in this position. So now he plays bishop to e2, threatening bishop to g4 and attacking this weakness on e6. And the simplest way I would say is to keep attacking by playing rook a8, queen c5, and so white would play queen c5 and so on. The position still won't be easy, but Fabi plays king h8, which was a horrible move because bishop g4, how can you defend this pawn? The queen is already overloaded. So knight to g6, so once this knight moves, guess what? c6 pawn hangs. f4, you can play anything, but you won't be able to save the c6 pawn. Rook a8, queen c5, now two pieces are attacking the queen directly and the rook indirectly. So what he would do, if you play, let's say, rook a6, then he would simply play, I would say, bishop to e2, attack the rook, and then gobble up this pawn on a6, also c6. So queen to e8, but the pawn is dropping anyway. Queen takes, rook takes, now d4, he tries desperately, but this is all in vain. Knight takes f4, and now once this knight is kicked off, that e6 would also drop. Bishop takes e6, rook a1, this is all desperate. g6, because the mate was threatened. Bishop to c4, attacking the knight, knight to b4, rook c8 check, king g7, and after d5, Fabiano resigns game number 1. The pawn duo will be too much for white, for black in this position. There's absolutely no way that black would be able to defend this position with this. With two pawns down. And so the game 1 ended like that. What happened in game 2? In game 2, Fabiano Caruana was white and Magnus was black. And this was also a very interesting game because Fabi sensed that after this move, he would, if he plays bishop to b5, goes into this Rai Lopez, then Magnus will annoy him by playing knight f6, the Berlin defense, which has been his key weapon in all world championship matches, all classical games. His repertoire in Berlin defense is next to none, I would say. So he goes for this Italian opening and Fabiano goes for Evans Gambit. Does he? No, he doesn't. He should have gone for b4 and would have tried to make things interesting, but he goes for the c3. That's a calm Italian variation. He could go for d3, go pianissimo, and even that is also respectable. Knight to f6, d3, defending the pawn. And instead of d3, there are ways, like say if bishop is not here, then you can play knight takes pawn as well, with the intention of playing d4 after that. Not now. d6 defends that possibility. a4, so this is all somewhat normal, very well known. Castles, h6, stopping bishop to g5, rook to e1, centralizing the rook, h3 stopping bishop to g4, bishop e6, bishop to b5, knight to a7, attacking this bishop. But knight to e7 is much more respected, because what happens when b4 is played, let's say after bishop d2, if white plays b4, then bishop normally jumps back to a7, but that possibility is always made if white has the option of playing a5. But however, the black pawn on a5 blocks that possibility, so knight goes to a7 in this case, whereas in most cases knight jumps to e7. So d4, e d4, c d4, and knight takes b5 by Magnus, which was pretty strange, giving up a dark square bishop and going into this opposite colored bishops game. Soon it will be opposite color bishop endgame, and it doesn't matter after knight c3, knight c6, bishop to f4, d5 by Magnus, that is plays e5, and you can play knight to e7 in this position, but knight e4 is also good. Even though you can see in this position after rook takes e4, white is a pawn up, but this is almost equal because of these opposite color bishops, and once the game goes into these bishop only endgames, then the game normally fizzles out to a draw, irrespective of whether you're a pawn up or whether you are 2 pawns up. 3 pawns up, more or less it also can be a draw, but in generally a pawn up or 2 pawns up, it is obviously draw, because the opposite color bishops cannot attack each other, and with those resources, white or black or both players have moves up their sleeves, so they don't have to make any pawn or king moves. So rook f2 d8, rook c1, rook d3, so making sure black rook is active in this position. Rook comes to e3, so what is white trying to do is to exchange rooks, and even though, as I said, opposite color bishops, but there is still 4-3 majority on the king side. So if he tries to, let's say, play rook takes, then there might be opportunity of playing bishop takes. So he plays rook a to d8, so he wants to exchange rooks this way. Black doesn't want to exchange rooks like that, so that his bishop comes, but it would come anyway, because after rook takes, bishop comes to e3 anyway. Rook comes to b3, attacking the pawn on b2, knight d4, knight takes, bishop takes, because if rook takes had happened, then c6 would have dropped. So rook b4, and again, there aren't nice ways to defend. If you, let's say, go for rook a1, then that won't be pleasant, because that rook would be just fizzled out. And by the way, I should say the bishop is attacked, so he gets his pawn back, and now both sides have equal number of pawns. But look at this position, 2-1 majority is much more dangerous than 4-3 majority, and which we will see in this game. And as once Kasparov said in his famous game, that 5-3 is more dangerous than 7-5. So, and as we say, 2-1 is more dangerous than 4-3. g4, so he's trying to push, but Carlsen pushes b5, king to g2, b4, so his pawns are more powerful, bishop to d4, b3, so he fixes this pawn here, making sure that no advance your pawn as far as it could. And that's not all, this pawn is defended by this bishop, and this bishop cannot be challenged by this bishop. That's the big thing in this position. If white is able to play f4 or f5 successfully, then things could be fine, and we might see a game fizzle out to a draw, but we are way too far from this. b3 also opens this line to the rook, attacking the bishop, So bishop goes back to c3 again. Rook to a2, so making sure that this pawn runs down the board, and exchange on c3, a3 happens. Rook to d1, so he's trying to activate his rook Fabi, but a4, king f3, a3. Carlsen is way too fast in this position. Rook d2, things looking really scary for Fabi. A takes b2, bishop takes b2 is somewhat forced, and now it looks like the position is equal because white has placed its blockade on b2 successfully, and he only needs to make random rook moves, good random moves I would say, so that this bishop, making sure that this bishop stays where it actually is at the moment. g5, king to e3, activating the king, king h7, and now f4 by Fabi. Still okay, I would say, but better would have been to play f3, just not challenging this pawn now, waiting for the moment to come. That was very important. G takes, king to g6, so Carlsen is activating his king. Things are looking really nasty here for Fabiano because of this dangerous b3 pawn, protected pawn on b3, and Fabiano has lost his previous game, so another little bit, add a bit of pressure here at the moment. So h4, so making sure that king doesn't come to these squares and is somewhat restricted, and also making sure that this king finds some sort of safety. So h5, so Magnus is trying to open up the position. G takes h5 check, king takes h5, attacking the pawn. Rook comes to h2, and now there is no possibility of playing rook to d4, so rook a4 check, king to e3, and now if Carlsen wants a draw, then he can just simply take the pawn on h4, and as I said, this bishop cannot be taken away from this b2, and also the king would come eventually here, and the game would end in a draw for sure. But Carlsen has some other ideas, and he plays this incredible move, king to g4. So his idea is to play king g3, king g2, attacking this rook and then taking this pawn here. But things are so easy for black in this case, because h5, king to g3 attacks the rook, and in this case actually white is too slow because he cannot push h6 because the rook would be hanging, and if you think that h7, then rook is just in a nick of time to stop the pawn queening. So he has to play rook h1, king g2, rook to d1, and you can just attack the pawn on h4. And here he should have played, let's say, bishop to d4, or he played rook d2, but still it's okay, it's not bad at all. Rook d2 check, king to g3 might say that he is losing a pawn on h5, which he actually is. After rook to d8, rook takes h5, so now he has another weapon up his sleeve, is this f pawn. You have to be very careful. So rook g8 check, king to h3, and now this position looks drawish because this rook is now cutting this king through g5, is created this wall, and this king cannot cross this wall. And if rook keeps its position safely here, then things might turn differently. And by the way, this bishop is already protecting this pawn, so everything is fine up on that front. King to d2, rook to f5, still position looks okay. Bishop to d4, and this was very dangerous, playing this bishop away. Rook to f3, and now the best move in this position should have been to play rook to g1 to keep protecting Maybe he was worried about bishop c4 or something. I don't know. And he wanted to block this with bishop to e3, and which he did. And he was hoping that he would play, let's say, rook f5 back, and the things would still be fine for white, and maybe looking for repetition of this sorts. But in fact, here comes Carlsen's big knockout punch on Fabi, and this was, I would say, a very harmful punch. And I will give you some time, take a pause and think. Well, if you found it out, brilliant. And if you want to see what punch did Carlsen deliver, is f5. I would say this will hurt. Obviously, taking en passant would lead to capture of rook, and this is very devastating now because rook is attacked and f4 is also threatened in the same case. And now this bishop has created a tremendous blockade for this pawn. So how can you deal this? He tried rook e8, but now f4, another counter attack. So if you take, I will also take, and that too with check. And I already have a passed pawn here. So which pawn will you defend? And your pawn hampers with the e pawn, with the attack on the e pawn. So that's a very difficult situation to be in. Bishop d4 is a desperate attempt, but now bishop to c4, the move that Fabiano was threatened with, I would say, was threatened about. Bishop to c4, it has happened, and now he is somewhat pushed to the wall. King to c1, and now rook d3, cutting this king even further. And now Carlsen is ready to push his f pawn with some deadly propositions up his sleeve. Maybe bishop a1 or bishop b2, but it's already too late. You play anything, that would be losing basically. White is in a tsutswang in this position, plays bishop to a7, now rook c3 check, cutting the king even more, because if king comes here then b2, and if you play rook b8 then rook c1 check. Oh man. King goes to b1, it has to go to b1, it cannot go to d1. Rook to c2, now freezing this fight for this king. Now king has only 2 squares to go, and things are looking very shaky indeed. And if you think that I've forgotten about the passed pawn, that what happens if white starts to attack with e6? Well, I've kept this variation for you. You can simply attack the pawn twice, and if you play e7, threatening rook to h8 and then promoting, well, that doesn't work because after bishop to d3, and if king a1 then rook a2 will be mate. So I show you this one, king to c1, then b2 check, king to d1, and you can even promote to a rook, and that is actually checkmate. So after rook c2, not good options. Rook c8 was played by Fabiano. King to g4, so making sure that Carlsen is on time catching this pawn. And again, if you play e6, well, you just take it. And you think that rook takes c2, pawn takes, king takes, and this bishop will give itself up for this pawn, and that would be a draw. But what about this? The rook is pinned, and pawn takes will be end of the world. So you cannot play e6 in this position, so that's why Fabi played rook c6. So if e6, he can capture with the rook. Now bishop to d3, and again the same thing. Rook takes c2, b takes c2, check, and a defended pawn basically. King to c1 to stop promotion, king to f5, making sure that he catches the pawn. Bishop to b8. I would say it's already gone from Fabi's hands. f3, and now this bishop is somewhat overloaded. King takes, king d2, king f4, can't take it because c1 queen. Bishop to e3 check, and after king to g3, Fabiano Caruana resigns game number 2, and game 3 was a draw. So Magnus Carlsen wins set 1 of his quarterfinal match against Fabiano. So some hard work to be done. He has a lot of time. He has, I think, 2 sets up his sleeve to rectify his mistakes. And tough luck for Fabi, but great chess from Magnus. Obviously, the threat is f2. The bishop will have to give itself up, and this king, this bishop, and this pawn will be too much for white to handle, and that will be that. So, and by the way, I should say, if a king takes, then c1 queen, you give itself, and then f2, the pawn will be unstoppable. I forgot about that, so pardon me. So Carlsen striking hard on Fabi, and there was another match between Jan Nepomniachtchi and Vladislav Artemiev, which I will cover in another video. So for this, I hope you liked my video. I hope you liked my analysis. Thanks for watching. Stay safe. Cheers. Bye.